Hello, family. We're back on this beautiful Sabbath, and we're going to continue reading the book of Genesis. Today we're starting with Genesis chapter 29, verse 1. Then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. And thither were all the flocks gathered. And they rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep, and put that stone again upon the walls of the mouth in his place. And Jacob said unto them, My brethren, whence be ye? And they said, Of Haran are we. And he said unto them, Know ye Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. And they said unto him, Is he well? And they said, He is well. And behold, Rachel his daughter cometh with the sheep. And he said, Lo, is it yet high day? Neither it is time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep, and go and feed them. And they said, We cannot, until all the flocks be gathered together, till they roll the stone from the well's mouth. Then we watered the sheep. And while he yet spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. And it came to pass, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. And Jacob kissed Rachel, and lifted up his voice, and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother, and that he was Rebekah's son. And he ran and told her father.
Verse 13. And it came to pass, when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him, and embraced him, and kissed him, and brought him to his house, and told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, Surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him the space of a month. To Jacob, Because thou art my brother, shouldest thou therefore serve me for a note? Tell me, what shall thy wages be?
Verse 16. And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. And Jacob loved Rachel, and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. And Laban said, It is better that I give her to thee, than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days, for the love he had to her. And Jacob said unto Laban, Give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place, and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter, and brought her to him. And he went in unto her. And Laban gave his daughter Leah Zilpah, his maid, for a handmaid. And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah, and he said to Laban, What is this thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve with thee for Rachel? Wherefore hast thou beguiled me? And Laban said, It must not be so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn.
Verse 27. Fulfill her weeks, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so, and fulfilled her week. And he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah his handmaid to be her maid. And he went and also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. And the Lord saw that Leah was hidden. He opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, Surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. Verse 33. And she convinced again, and bare a son, and said, Because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, he hath therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simon. Simeon. And she conceived again, and bare a son, and she said, Now this time will my husband be joined unto him, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi.
Verse 35. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she said, Now I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. Genesis chapter 30, verse 1. And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister, and said unto Jacob, Give me children, or else I die. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. And he said, Am I in God's deed? Who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? And she said, Behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, she shall bear upon my knees, and I may also have children by her. And she gave him Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife, and Jacob went in unto her. And Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God hath judged me, and he hath also heard my voice, and hath given me a son. Therefore called she his name Dan. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again, and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, With great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, A troop cometh, and she called his name Gad. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. And Leah said, Happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher.
Verse 14. And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest, and found mandrakes in a field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, Give me, I pray thee, of thy sons mandrakes. And she said unto her, Is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? And will thou take away my son mandrakes also? And Rachel said, Therefore he shall lie with thee tonight, for thy son's mandrakes. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and said, Thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my sons mandrakes. And he lay with her that night.
Verse 17. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived, and bare Jacob the 5th son. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and bare Jacob the 6th son. And Leah said, God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun. And afterwards she bare a daughter, and called her name Dinah. And God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her, and opened her womb, and she was conceived, and bare a son. And God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, and said, The Lord shall add to me another son. And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob had said unto Laban, Send me away, that I may go unto mine own place, and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done thee. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience, that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake.
Verse 28. And he said, Appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. And he said unto him, Thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me. For it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. And now when shall I provide for mine house, mine own house also? And he said, What shall I give thee? And Jacob said, Thou shalt not give me anything, if thou wilt do this thing for me. I will get feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, when it shall come for my hire before thy face. Everyone that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me.
Verse 34. And Laban said, Behold, I would it might be according to thy word. And he removed that day that he goats that were ring-straked and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey betwixt himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. And Jacob took him rods of green poplar, and of the hazel and the chestnut tree, and piled wild strakes in them, and made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had piled before the flocks in the gutters of the watering troughs, when the flocks came in to drink, and then they should conceive when they spake, when they came to drink.
Verse 40. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not unto Laban's cattle. And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did convince the Jacob, laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle, and the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler Laban's and the stronger Jacob's exceedingly. And he had much cattle and manservants and camels and asses.
Genesis chapter 31, verse 1. And he heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all this glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock. And he said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before, but the God of my father hath been with me. And ye know that with all my power I have served your father. And your father hath deceived me, and changed my wages 10 times, but God suffered him not to hurt me. If he said thus, the speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said thus, the ringstrakes shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ringstraked. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father, and given them to me. And it came to pass at that time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ringstraked, speckled, and gristled. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here am I. And he said, Lift up down now thine eyes, and see all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ringstraked, speckled, and gristled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's, now and then whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. Then Jacob rose up, and set his sons and his wives upon camels. He carried away all his cattle, and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting, which he had gotten in Haran, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, and that he told him not that he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and rose up and passed over the river, and set his face toward Mount Gilead.
Verse 22. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. Verse 23. And he took his brethren with him, and pursued after him 7 days' journey. And they overtook him in the Mount Gilead. Verse 24. And God came to Laban, the Syrian, in a dream by night, and said unto him,
Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. Then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban was with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives, taken with the sword? Wherefore didst thou flee away secretly, and steal away from me, and didst not tell me, that I might have sent thee away with mirth, and with songs, and tabret, and with harp, and hast not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Thou hast not done foolishly in so doing. It is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. But the God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, Take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And now though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after my father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my goods? And Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for I said, Peradventure thou wouldest take my force thy daughters from me. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not lie. Before our brethren discern, thou is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. And Jacob went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the two maidservants' tent, but he found them not. Then went he out of Leah's tent, and entered into Rachel's tent.
34. Now Rachel had taken the images, and put them in the camel's furniture, and sat upon them. And Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. And she said to her father, Let it not displease my lord, that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of woman is upon me. And he searched, but not found in the images. And Jacob was wroth, and chode with Laban. Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my trespass? What is my sin, that thou hast hotly pursued after me? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, thou hast found of all thy household stuff. Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, and they may judge betwixt us. This 20 years have I been with thee, thy ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have not eaten. That which was torn off beast I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it of my hand, didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day by drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. Thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me. Surely thou hast sent me away now empty. God hath seen mine affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what I can do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne. Now therefore thou can come, let us make a covenant, and I thou, and let it be a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar.
Verse 46. And Jacob said unto his brethren, Gather stones. And they took stones, and made an heap. And they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jahar Sahadutah, but Jacob called it Gilead. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Gilead. And Mizpah, for he said, The Lord watch between me and thee, when we are absent one from another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is betwixt me and thee. And Laban said to Jacob, Behold this heap, and behold this pillar, which I have cast betwixt me and thee, will not pass over this heap to thee, and that thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto thee for harm. The God of Abraham and the God of the heart and the God of their father judge betwixt us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount, and called his brethren to eat bread. And they did eat bread, and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters, and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned unto his place.
Genesis chapter 32, verse 1. And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, This is God's host. And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother, unto the land of Seir, in the country of Edom. And they commanded them thus, saying, Ye shall speak unto my lord Esau. Thy servant Jacob saith thus, I have sojourned with Laban, and stayed there until now. And I have oxen and asses, flocks and men servants, and women servants, and I have sent to tell my lord that I may find grace in thy sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels, into 2 bands, and said, If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saidest unto me, Return into thy country, into thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all my mercies, and of all the truth which thou hast shewed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become 2 bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of thy brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children.
Verse 13. And he lodged there that same way. and took of what which came to his hand, as present for Esau his brother, 200 she-goats, and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 milch camels with their colts, 49 kine, and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses, and 10 fools. And he delivered them into the hand of his servants, every drove by themselves, and said unto his servants, Pass over before me, and put a space betwixt drove and drove. And he commanded the four smallest, saying, When Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, Whose art thou, and whither goest thou, and whose? Then thou shalt say, They be thy servant Jacob. It is a present sent unto my lord Esau, and behold also he is behind us.
Verse 19. And so commanded he the second, and the third, and all that followed the droves, saying, On this manner shall ye speak unto Esau, when ye find him, and say there ye, moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept of me. So went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company. And he rose up that night, and took his 2 wives, and his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. And he took them, and sent them over the brook, and sent over that he had. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that the man prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, What is thy name? And he said, Jacob.
Verse 28. And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power of God with men, and hast prevailed. And Jacob asked him, and said, Tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, Wherefore is it that thou doest ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. And as he passed over Peniel, the sun rose up upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel eat not of the seed that tree.
Okay, family. So we just finished reading Genesis chapters 29 through 32. And we learned about Jacob and his meeting of his wife Rachel and Leah, but how he met Rachel at the well first, right? And he found her fair or attractive, so to speak, and he wanted to make her a wife. Rachel goes on to tell her family, which happens to be Laban, which is her father, and it is Jacob's uncle on his mother's side, which is Rebekah. It's Rebekah's brother. He goes on to wanting to marry Rachel, but because Rachel is the younger of the 2 daughters of Laban, Laban suggests that, demands that Jacob is to marry both then, to marry Leah, which is the eldest. So he says in his tradition, and remember, he is Syrian, so in his Syria's tradition, he suggests that he should be marrying both Leah and Rachel, being Leah first because she is the eldest, right, in order to take Rachel's hand in marriage. So starting off, Rachel realizes that she is, obviously a favorite of Jacob's, and Leah sees this and feels this, and she feels like she's hated, and God says he is looking upon her. He feels her, and he feels and hears her affliction, right? Because she feels like that she knows her husband favors Rebecca, right?
Mm-hmm.
Her younger sister. And so because of this, her younger sister wombs is shut down, right? They says that Rachel was barren, and so now Leah is bearing the children of Jacob. So she is the first to bear his children. And then because of the jealousy this creates between Leah and Rachel, because Rachel's barrenness, she ends up doing the same thing as Sarai or Sarah suggested with Abraham. And so she suggests that one of her handmaidens take her husband Jacob as a wife, and that she have children since her womb cannot hold a child. And this happens on several occasions, and as we see the becoming of the tribes of Israel, right? The 12 tribes. So we see how these children or how those nations begin, and that is through the lineage of Jacob and his two wives and the handmaids of his two wives, Leah and Rebecca. Going into Jacob bargains with Laban. Remember, he initially was told that he was only supposed to serve 7 years for his wife's hand in marriage. And it seems that he ends up spending a lifetime, right? He spends, 20 years tarrying with Laban, and it seems like Laban has no interest in letting them go. He even mentions that the children and the crops, or basically the flocks of Jacob, belong to him, right? He said, these are my cattle, these are my flocks, those are my wife, right? Or those are my children, so to speak, the children that he has created with these handmaids and his two wives, right? And so Jacob is afraid. He thinks that his life might be gone, but he prays the Most High God, and he's basically saying that he ends up finding favor too, right before he does take on his journey to leave, because basically Laban has like this jealousy or this weird relationship he has with him, because he ends up telling him like he can only keep like certain cattle, certain flock, right? And then somehow his flock ends up being still fruitful, even though he tries to give him what may be deemed at that time, the unfruitful cattle or flock of animals. And somehow Laban's is not doing well, right? It almost reminds me of what's to come. Some of the stories that you hear about in Exodus, right? I don't want to speak ahead, so I'll stay present in Genesis. But anyhow, he still has God's favor, remember, because he did get that blessing from his father Isaac. And so he finally gets, the courage, and he takes his wife and his children and his flock and his men servants and his women servants, and they take on. And it sounds like, Rachel and Leah, they decide to go ahead and take some stuff from Laban as well, and Laban notices this alongside, obviously, that all of them are leaving, and he pursues them, and he basically spares their life because Spirit comes on to Jacob and tells him he needs to get back to the land of his father, which is in the land of Canaan. Jacob says a prayer. He is met with an angel, and so this is where we are. So does anybody want to say what spoke to them the most about the last few chapters that we read in the book of Genesis?
I would like to go first. In chapter 30, throughout chapter 30, Rachel, we can clearly see that Rachel really envies Leah, and we can see that because she is like, to me, I think it's obvious that because she's like, Rachel is competing to see how many children she can have more than like Leah, and because of that she is like, it sounds like, and since envy is like one of the deadly sins, that means she's probably like not going to be in like God's covenant if she like keeps up that envy and jealousy against Leah.
Leah?
What stood out to me was chapter 29, verse 20. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days for the love he had for her. I thought that stuck out to me because he had waited a long time for her and stuff, and how it only felt like a few days. Even though he had to wait and stuff, he still waited for her, even though he didn't have to. He could have just went on to someone else.
Okay. Nice. And
I want to talk about chapter 29, verse 31. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. So I want to talk about this because it shows that I want to talk about this because basically this shows that Rachel was basically the more elected this shows that Rachel was the more elected sister as a wife, and Leah was hated. So God opened her womb, but then Rachel couldn't have any kids.
so what stood out for me was how Jacob kind of got caught up in the midst of these two sisters, and how Rachel tries to make him feel inadequate for her inadequacy, right? Because she says, chapter 30, verse 1. And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said unto Jacob, Give me children, or else I die. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel. And he said, Am I in God's stead, who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? And she said, Behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, and that I may have children by her. So basically, it's obvious, right, at this point, because he's already had children, that he can conceive, right? That he's able to have kids, and she is not. And so it seems like he's, it sounds like he's in modern day, what we call irritation, okay? He's irritated because it's almost like for him, it's like, okay, now, you're making this about you instead of, the family as a whole. And in this situation. What else also stood out for me was the fact that Laban even had both of these sisters in this predicament, like the type of man he was. And what's missing here is Rachel and Leah's actual mother and father. Mother, should I say, because Laban is their father. But it's just like, okay, that he is saying he's of Syria, but remember he is a sibling to Rebecca. And so they are like half siblings. But it's just showing the difference in culture, because they already have this, ancestry thing going on. And he knows this, right? Because his nephew is asking for his daughter's hand in marriage, which is his cousins. So that's already, right? That's already, okay, what is going on here? But then you're going to have him marry both of your daughters, both of his cousins, right? He can't have one without the other. But maybe that was his way of just saying, like, he doesn't want to give away the younger. She was too young to marry, and that Leah, was old enough to marry. And for Jacob, it was like, okay, well, yeah, I'll take Leah if that means in the long run I get Rebecca. And maybe it was some type of test from Laban, like, okay, did you really want her that much that you're going to now marry her and another? So it never mentions it, but if there's a slight chance that there could have been some discord because of that. Maybe that's what Laban is not liking about Jacob, because why wasn't he happy enough with Leah's hand in marriage, what he had to offer her? That or just waiting, right? Because he could have waited, because you mentioned like he waited for he waited for Leah, but the truth is he didn't. He married, he did in a sense. I get what you mean, but he, in another sense, could he have left and came back? Like if he really loved Leah, he could have left and came back, but he was ready to sow his oats. Come on now, right? He was ready to have kids. He was ready to be with a woman, and so he took Rachel instead. He took Leah instead of waiting for Rachel. And he spent, his days with her up until the moment he got a chance to be able to marry Rachel, and he took it, right? So now he has two wives. And so it's creating a rift between two sisters. Because, it's already would have been a situation had they even not been sisters. Let's be honest. These type of situations never seem to fare well. Not even back in these times. So for it to be added insult to injury, like imagine your husband being shared between two sisters. So that's already another thing. And then, you know what I'm saying? And then one of them is jealous of the other. So then she's barren for quite some time until she has the birth of her son, Joseph. And we don't know they're not speaking on the stories like they do with Hagar, right? So we don't know the mental state or the emotional state of these handmaids that both Leah and Rachel had at their beck and call in order to fulfill what they thought would make their husband happy. But I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't seem like any of this stuff was something that Jacob necessarily was looking for. Like he just wanted to be, have a wife, and if he had children, I'm sure he was obviously going to be happy. Who wouldn't be, right? Want to be a father. But it didn't seem like having all these children was necessarily something that was on his mind. They happened and they came about because of a competition between two jealous sisters, right? One was jealous because she knew that he wanted the other, and the other was jealous because the other was able to conceive and was not barren, which is really what resulted in her being barren. So it's just a lot of, to me, it's just, a bunch of cycles continuing on. So they have not changed any cycles realistically from their forefathers. Granted, Isaac, he had one wife and they only had two children. But his wife obviously was his half sister. So you would have thought the cycle would have ended somewhere along those lines in there. And then the other part that stuck out for me too was how Jacob is met, in the desert, and he comes across Esau's people, right? He comes across, and they are letting them know that, things are okay. So it's getting ready as we go into chapter 33. What stands out to me is remember that they've pledged 20 years ago or so or more that, they would probably, actually Esau pledges that he would kill Jacob, and Jacob obviously was at a point where he was like, he didn't want to be on those terms with his brother, but like he was going to fend for himself. Now they're 20 years in, they both have children, they have accumulated their own wealth outside of their father, and, they have wives and stuff like that, and so it seems like Esau has had a change of heart.
I kind of wanted to elaborate on how God saw the future. So before Rebecca could do anything worse, he made her barren and made Leah conceive children that was her own. Also, God also helped Jacob and Esau's relationship with each other.
So is that what you were originally trying to say? You weren't speaking about Rebecca and the barrenness. You were saying that God, he foreseen the relationship that was supposed to be foretold for Esau and Jacob?
Yes.
And so, elaborate on that.
So, I was going to say that God, he saw what would have come if he didn't, step in. So, he, he gave Esau a reason to actually change, and
he softened Esau's heart, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Else have anything to share?
Yes, I do. Chapter 31, verse 7.
Mm-hmm.
Your father hath conceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but God suffered him not to hurt me. So I thought this was interesting because it shows that Jacob was getting a little fed up or something about what's going on between him and Laban, and it's just real confusing. And basically, I guess he's saying that he's been lying about the stuff over the years and keep on making excuses for different reasons about different things.
Yep.
I thought that was interesting.
Me too. He basically tried to prolong the time that he originally gave him, which was 7 years, right?
Yeah.
And then he added another 7 years on there, and then next thing you know, he spent 20 years, So it was basically he felt like that everything he had was his possessions. He felt like the only reason why Jacob, even had what he had was because of him, right? So there's a lot of jealousy there. I think somebody else kind of mentioned it earlier, the brother or the sisters were like their brother. Who was that? Who said that?
Oh, that was me.
Okay.
That he was kind of what's her name? Rebecca.
Oh, okay. Laban was like Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I can see kind of how his sisters caught a little bit of that too. So they definitely that jealousy definitely lied in wait. From Rebecca to Laban, but also to both of their offspring. And you see it in full play with the relationship between Leah and Rachel, which was I'm gonna be honest, it was not really a good setup for either one of them either. Yeah. And then going on with his relationship with his own nephew Jacob, he offered him in, he gave over his daughter's hands in marriage, just to ultimately basically slight Jacob.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what Spirit got us through for today. So that was a great read. Learning so much. Genesis can be a real handful, but it's definitely needed to see, the errors of our forefathers' ways and of those currently, right? Because some of this stuff, unfortunately, still plays out in today's modern world, right? So a lot of people like to say this stuff is biblical or it's in the Bible. This is old, stuff from olden time. But in reality, a lot of this stuff actually is happening right now in the present moment, right? A lot of the cycles, a lot of the traumas, a lot of the pain, a lot of the sins of the fathers and of the mothers, right, have been passed on to the children, and they have yet to be broken. A lot of these curses, a lot of these negative and unhealthy cycles that have been implemented into families, as a tradition, have yet to cycle their way out. So as our family, as the intuitive cosmic family, it's a goal of ours to see these things for what they are, call them out, and do our best. Because once you know better, you can do better. So if you know better, the saying is to do better. So we're going to do our best to learn from the mistakes of our ancestors, our relatives, and also from our biblical readings and interpretations from them that Spirit has led us to. All right, family, that's it for today. Have a good one.